What's going on, YouTube? Welcome back to another Guna Souls video where we will be talking about the world will fear Arsenal Football Club, and we're going to digest and we're going to talk about why that is and why there's so many salty rivals who don't understand what's going on and why the hate is real. And we're going to get right into the But before we do that, I'd like to ask for a quick favor. If you can hit that subscribe button, like the video, and share it, because it does massively help kind of grow the channel and be able to bring more content out more frequently. And obviously, it kind of shows whether you want to see what I'm doing. So, and obviously, if you want, you can follow me on Twitter as well on Guna Souls. But let's get right into the video. Enough of the self promotions. But why do I think the world should or will fear Arsenal Football Club? I mean, it's very Marmite at the moment. There's parts of rivals, there's parts of the Arsenal fan base that are starting to rate and understand how good Arsenal Football Club have become at what they're doing. But there's also a large majority of people who still don't want to put respect on Arsenal's name. And for me, it's quite baffling. Now, a lot of people want to, sort of push the excuse of it's one season, it's the whole, it's early in the season, anything can happen. We're not talking about title challenges. We're not talking about, winning the league. We're talking about securing top four. We're talking about the way we're playing and the progression that we're showing as a football club from on pitch, off pitch, youth level, community, just everything a football club represents and should be is being run in the right manner. And that's truly the reason why I believe people are going to fear Arsenal sooner or later. Now, I'd love to hear people rebuttal and have, sort of counteracting points to myself if you believe on the other side, because I know there's a lot of doubters, and I still know there's a lot of people who don't want to put that respect on the club's name just yet. So it'll be interesting to kind of see what it's all about. What's the name, brother? Hope you're good. Um, and I kind of just want to talk. I'm not an echo chamber. I'm not someone who's gonna look at comments and just because you disagree, I'm not gonna put them up because that's what I'm here to do. I want to rebuttal those arguments and I want to hear what people have to say. Now, for me, why do I think people should fear Arsenal and put that respect on their name? Well, solely because look at the way we're playing. Look at how efficient we've been. Look at all the metrics that you need to see in football. We're showing them. And obviously, kind of just want to point on this first as well. The problem with Arsenal is after the World Cup, I want to see them. Depth is a concern. Now, I agree. Depth is still somewhat of the concern because if there's major injuries, what do we do? Because in past seasons, what's let us down isn't necessarily key players being injured, but it's the number of injuries at the same time. Last season we had Ben White, Tomiyasu, Kieran Tierney, Thomas Partey, all four out at the same time, and that caused major issues. That's the starting centre back, that's the starting right back, starting left back, and obviously your sort of lone six DM all being out. That's the core and spine of your team. So it kind of made us reshift and rethink the way we were going to play. Obviously, Nuno Tavares isn't to the level that we need. Obviously, now we've covered that with Zinchenko and now Tierney both being our left back cover and options. Then you've got the likes of, Gabriel Magalhaes, you've got Ben White, Rob Holding, Saliba, and then you've also got Tomiyasu, Ben White, Cedric as your right back options. You've got Lokonga and Partey. I think the depth is a concern in terms of the drop off you can sometimes get once, the Thomas Partey is injured, which I agree with. And I understand that concern and fear. But for me, like, I still don't see it being as a big of a problem as we've had in the previous seasons. We're going to push on in the Europa League. We're going to push on in the league. So we are going to play a significant amount of games more than we did. We were knocked out in the cups early last season in terms of we didn't even get past the first rounds we played, and obviously we had no Europa League, so it was only the league to worry about. And obviously, Kenny says, adding to his point, players like Jesus for Brazil, Xhaka for Switzerland, two clubs who should get at least to the round of 16. Suspect Brazil could go quarters or more. An injury to Jesus is a big concern. But you know what it is, though? The whole injury talk, I get why, obviously, it gets amplified for Arsenal because it's a big talking point, not just for rivals, but our own fan base do this. They get at this little fear of what if we get injured. But it's the same with Spurs. It's the same with United. It's the same with even Liverpool. If you want to put them into that category of competing, like even the likes of Chelsea will suffer if they get a few first team injuries. Guess what happens? Their backups are not that good, and I don't think the depth issue is just an Arsenal issue. I think what a lot of people's reasonings for this is how frequently Arsenal players get injured, and that's why the whole depth thing becomes a conversation. But we've covered it. Um, we've kind of tried to rectify that mistake as much as we can in terms of trying to get we've got Jesus and Ketia. Okay, we're not talking quality for quality, but you've got depth of a player who can do a job. Then you look at your wide forwards. You've got the likes of Emil Smith Rowe. You've got Saka, Martinelli. You've got Reece Nelson there. You've got Marquinhos. Again, I'm not talking quality. I'm just talking about covers in positions. Then you've got the likes of Granit Xhaka. You've got Fabio Vieira. Potentially ESR could be tried out there. Then you've got Martin Odegaard. And then Fabio Vieira for his sort of 10 position. So I do hear it and I do hear the concerns, but I feel I feel like these squad questions have been more answered than they haven't. And even when you look at the defense as well, we've got four centre back options who are all solid. They may not all be brilliant or perfect, but at least three of them are. And then you've got two right back covers in a way, or three if you want to put Ben White in that conversation now as well. Then at left back, you've got Zinchenko Tierney. Now, the only concern is if Ramsdale gets injured, is Matt Turner good enough to take on Arsenal to the next level? And that's a valid concern for people to have. And you know, and I totally understand them concerns. But I don't think depth for me is that big of an issue. For a title race, I don't think Arsenal will win the league because of the reasons stated above. You'll not probably get to top four. However, I think United and Chelsea are much poorer than Arsenal at the moment. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to sit here and slate the other two teams. Um, Obviously, with Chelsea going through a manager change in Graham Potter, him having some profiles that he likes and some still aren't really his profile. It's going to be an interesting one to see kind of how they develop and how they become. When you talk about like United as well, it's very difficult because you're very weird, and I mean that in the most respectful way, because you go on to like beat the likes of ourselves, and then you lose the way you do to Man City, and then you struggle to Ammonia, whatever they're called, and it's just weird. I don't really know what's going on there because I don't think you're crap, but you're just not good, and it's just weird. You're like, you're okay. It just depends which United are turning up today. And that's why, I'm not that afraid. I think top four, like I'll say it now, I think top four secured. I'm not even worried about top four at the moment. I just think the question of whether we can be in a title challenge or whether we can push City all the way to the end is more of a expectation switch. But I don't think it will be. I think Man City right now are just too good. They won the league. They've been winning the league with comfortable points, and they've just added one of the aliens in football in Erling Haaland, the in my opinion right now the greatest clinical finisher I've ever gotten to witness. And that, yes, you can watch highlight YouTube reels of other players, but this guy just looks on another level of clinicalness and just ability to score goals. And that's what worries me is I want to be there to pounce on the opportunity if he does get his injuries, and if Kevin De Bruyne also picks up his knocks that he gets all season. That could be the only hope we have, to try and pounce on an opportunity and just try and work, like really push on and really push to the very ends to be able to do that. So it's quite interesting. I do think we could do it. but it's very early to say whether we can take on the likes of Man City because we've only played. Well, we've played the only. I guess the only good thing is we played three of the top six already. Um, Obviously, two of them coming at home to Liverpool and Spurs, and us getting 6 points, and then the one away performance that we had, we obviously dropped points in, and yeah, exactly. I think it's just you're very inconsistent, and that's what's going to cost you for for those questions that we should be afraid of you. Because I find it very difficult to be afraid of United right now. For what you just said, like you're very inconsistent, and I think it's a level of understanding, tactics. It's a level of understanding the manager and the way he is and how his motivation works. But it's also the manager understanding your players and figuring out what he needs to do to manage those players because you've got a lot of big egos and you've got a lot of different characters who need to be sort of managed in a different way because you're not going to manage Ronaldo the same way you manage a Rashford or a Bruno or Harry Maguire or Varane. There's different characters that need different sorts of respect, which is what I think Ten Hag's going through right now. So yeah, I think you kind of touch on it here. We're starting to see Ten Hag's tactics against Everton and Ammonia finishing an issue. Yeah, I mean that's the thing though. I think it happens with every new manager coming in. The football gets implemented, then you kind of lose your finishing ability, but that also comes in. But I feel like you're missing Anthony Martial because he is that striker for you. And there's a lot of I know a lot of the United fan base are very sort of marmite on him, whether they like him or hate him, or whether they rate him or don't rate him. But for me, I just feel like he is that Ten Hag striker. Of course, you can get better. Of course, there's always going to be improvements there to be made. But I feel like he is that level of player that Ten Hag needs in his team, and I feel that's when those issues of finishing will become less apparent. You always beat us at the Emirates, and Xhaka always scores a long shot against us. So there is that. I wouldn't be worried for you. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't mean it in a disrespectful way. I just don't see United as part of one of our sort of fears or one of the teams to push us off top four. I feel like top four with Arsenal is secured. The same way for Man City. It was meant to be Liverpool, but I just don't know where they are. Don't know what's happening with them, whether they'll bounce back. But I feel like there's two positions up for grab, and it's for the rest of the league. And call me arrogant, call me cocky, call me deluded, but I truly, truly do not see us dropping from the top four this season. And I think Champions League football, whether it's through Europa League or top four, will happen. And for me, that's the big thing. Is if we get Champions League football, I feel like that's when the respect, the fear, and the anxiety that a lot of rivals are feeling will just be amplified. And look, the thing is, I'm gonna get through the comments as well. We've got our annual OT win. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is, isn't it? It's just your annual Emirates win, and then we'll go win on the Emirates. We are solid at home. Leeds is a game where you could really batter them. Leeds defense is one of the worst in the league, and I think you'll be under Jesse Marsh is different. I know they're not that solid yet, but they are a different proposition. And I don't reckon we'll batter them, but I think we'll show a good showing. It's a weird one. I'd say we aren't a fair yet. Not obviously, not yet. I think Arsenal are, but I don't think you guys are because you still got to give it time. But that's the thing. Are you going to give it time? Is your fan base willing to give it time to Ten Hag to be able to give it time? And that's the difference because fans like myself who backed Arteta, who said, you've got to give these things time to rebuild and refocus because there isn't just a rebuild on the pitch, there's a rebuild behind the structure of the football club. And that's the big thing. We gave that all time. We were allowing, things to work themselves out. Edu, Vinay, Josh, Stan, Arteta, getting rid of the likes of Raul Sanelli, Sven Mislintat, restructuring the sort of youth academy and the youth system and the loaning system through Per Mertesacker. These things took time. They didn't happen overnight and they took years to build. And the scouting department as well. The way that we now scout is in a more modern way. We're data focused, we're analytic, we're looking at player profiles and seeing how they fit the system mentally, physically, and whether they have the technical attributes to be able to do that as well. So for me, I don't know whether United are willing to give that time to be able to do all of these, because Ten Hag comes from the school of thought of Pep Guardiola and the Johan Cruyff football. So if you give that football time, trust me, it's a force to be reckoned with. And that's what Mikel's showing. Mikel comes from a Pep school of thought who has his own ideas, such as bringing some of Moyes' elements, bringing the likes of Wenger football, bringing the Moyes solidity. And that's what you're starting to now see, that full package of Arteta's career in football being shown in one team. And that's why you're seeing this team doing what it's doing, winning the way it's winning, showing different styles of football in different phases of the same game, and why tactics and why that is being embedded into them, burnt into their heads on positional play, on where they need to be, how they need to be structured, where they can find their teammates. These are all things that are being, burnt into their brains to understand, so they can play telepathic football. They need to know, where a player is going to be, where a player needs to be. So if Saka's out of position, Ben White can cover that position, and Saka can do what Ben White's doing, or vice versa. And Martinelli's out of position, so Tierney or Zinchenko cover that position, and vice versa, he covers for them if they're out of position. And that's what you're starting to see, a little bit of that sort of telepathic understanding and accountability for each other, but for themselves as well. So there's no longer moaning, why weren't you there? Why did you make this mistake? It's a team thing. It's a spirit. It's a, okay, yes, we understand you have made a mistake, but it's calm. We're in it together. We'll win together. We'll lose together. We'll make a mistake together. And that's the difference. And I feel like there's a togetherness, not just from the players, but fans and the players coming together. And these things are going to naturally take time to turn that around. The fan base, there was Arsenal fan base as well, was very Marmite. It was very Marmite, because some people liked the appointment of Arteta or were willing to give that time, but some weren't. Some were like, no, we're not going to give it time. He's a novice. Why should he be a work experience for a manager? Why should he get that experience, through Arsenal? Why can't he go elsewhere and get it and then come back to us? We're a big club. But now we're starting to see the fruitions of bringing a progressive manager with modern ideas, who not only understands football, but understands sort of the management side and the structure side behind it. Working under Pep Guardiola, you bring your own structure. And Pep bought that with Arteta being there, and he understood the importance of having a director of football, a technical director that you can trust. So that's a few of the reasons why I believe people should be fearing Arsenal Football Club, and that's just my opinion. And people can call it delusional, people can call it, whatever. But the reality is, we're building a sustainable structure here, and that's why I think that if you're not fearing them, you will fear them. Um, Next few seasons will improve. I can't see Liverpool finishing higher than six. You know what? I don't think Liverpool fans right now are seeing themselves in the top six. So I don't really blame rivals for thinking that way or not fearing them. But for me, it's like they're still a good team. It's just whether they click, whether they something revamps inside of them, and they're able to push on, because the players aren't dusted. They're very good, world class players in there, and they're just not performing. So it's just a weird one. It's a really strange thing that's going on there. They're honestly so poor at the minute, and it's their midfield and defense that really worries me. Yeah, it's easily gotten at. They've got no control. But again, like, it's weird. I don't want to write them off just yet in that top four, top six conversation, because that's, for me, just a wild thing to do. Um, Trent Trent is injured, but when he comes back, he shouldn't. No, I think he's been poor. I think if Gomez continues the way he has been, he'll be fine. I think he should stay there until he starts to do what Trent's been doing, which is playing poor. Liverpool also don't have as nearly much depth as you. They don't have depth that doesn't exist in a club. So no. Players like Firmino for Brazil too, exactly. I really worry for them. Um, yeah, I get what you mean though. Arsenal are a side which I'm not sure are fully fair, but they certainly will be a force to be reckoned with in the coming years. I just don't know yet. Want to see them in the Champions League next. Do you know what? We're getting Europa League experience for the Champions League. Now, I know that sounds crazy to say, but playing European teams, regardless of level and regardless of quality, is always different because Europe plays with a chess map, whereas in the Premier League, up until at least the likes of Pep and stuff came in, there wasn't really tactics. There weren't really chess matches and tactical battles going on. It was more style battles, but nothing that, you know, grabbed your attention and gone, okay, there's now tactics involved. There's a way to change games. And Europe was always and has always been more advanced than the Premier League from that scale. And we're starting to now understand that every week you've got to change the way you play. You're not going to get this intensity. You're not always going to get, physicality. You could get levels of both. You could get a tactical battle. You could get teams just outsmarting you, and that's the difference. Even though the quality is poor, tactically they'll be really good. Structurally, they'll be really good. So it's always a weird competition when you go into Europe. It's different levels of threat. Most of these teams you've never played, you've never come across, you've never heard of their players. So you're literally going off of gameplays that you've seen for a week or two preparing for this game. So it's difficult. Whereas in the Premier League or when you're playing English oppositions, you see them week in, week out. You see their results, you hear about them. So you're kind of aware and you can easily prepare for them because you played them before and you'll know what their strengths and weaknesses are. Arsenal United final. The thing is, like, that would blow the internet up. Like, seriously, it'll be crazy to see a final like that. Because yeah, that to me, it'd probably be the best final to have, but it's a final I can't be asked with because it'll just be so much going on, and there's just too many United fans I know to even bear if we lose this. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about that one. Jurgen Klopp has called out the influence of oil money on football by indicating that no one can compete with Manchester City's riches. The thing is, I hate when fans, managers, football clubs do this, and I'll explain why. The thing is, Klopp's acting as if he didn't spend £89 million on Darwin Nunes that he didn't need. You know, can £89 million be spent elsewhere and improve that team? Yes. But what happened? His ego got in the way. He just saw Manchester City signing Erling Haaland, and he was like, I need to do something. So what does he do? Goes and buys a player that's probably wasn't even on his radar, that he didn't even bother to check up on, that he didn't really want up until Erling Haaland went to Man City. And yet he's talking about riches in football. Now, yes, Manchester City are rich, richer than most, and I get that. But these teams and managers are acting as if they haven't spent obscene amount of money on a single player that they didn't need. Now, what could have Darwin Nunes money have bought Liverpool? Basuma into that midfield. It could have got them Onana as well, Ibrahim Sanagre, and that's just covering a few midfielders for the same price they pay for Darwin Nunes. So he can sit here and he can cry about other people having money when he's wasted money. So we could look. He can cry about it. That's his. That's what he does. It's what he's known for. He's a professional moaner. He's a professional crier. He doesn't accept that he's wrong. And this is why I don't think he'll ever go down as one of the greats because he just doesn't accept a reality that does exist where he needs to rebuild teams. He also needs to understand how to manage his money better. He doesn't need to be reactive to what his opposition are doing. And this is one of the biggest things I criticize United for doing. Because Man City went in for Ronaldo, didn't mean United needed to go in for him. United don't need Ronaldo. I don't care how many fans want to convince themselves they did. They did not need Ronaldo. What they needed was a DM, and you decided it doesn't matter for me. I'm not even saying about the money. But for me to spend even 25 million, which is what I think he spent on him, could have just got you a DM that you needed. And that's the thing. Is this whole reactive nature within football clubs at the moment to not get one up and to try and get one up on their opposition is what's killing their club. Arsenal have stopped doing that. Arsenal don't react to the transfer window. They react to their plans and they look at what they need and what they've wanted and they go get what they wanted. Rather than looking at, okay, Man City's bought Haaland, so we need to get a striker we no longer need, but we need to do that because our oppositions have done that. So it's a bit of a tipsy turvy thing to do. Um, Arsenal United final might be bigger than the Champions League final, depending on who goes to. Is that a probably not? In terms of like pure popularity from the two fan bases, you're probably not wrong. Um, because I don't know who can get to that final right now. Man City look to be clear favourites. PSG seem very up and down, but they seem to be one of the teams that could get there. So it's interesting, should I say? But you're not wrong. If an Arsenal United final was to happen, it's just as big as those El Clasicos because of how big the two fan bases are and how much rivalry and hatred stems from the two clubs. So I wouldn't say it's a stretch. I'd actually be interested to see the numbers. Um, the fact is hilarious every time City crash out of the Champions League. So I want them to keep spending money so they get knocked out of the UCL every year, to be honest. Just maybe you're going to win it when I'm 90 and after all your nosy neighbours. Thing is, Ronaldo to City I would have had the thing is I hear that. I do. But the thing is you didn't need him. There were more pressing matters in your team. And this is, do you know what it is? It shouldn't have given you nightmares. What it should have done is gone, the club's acting like a big club again. That's how I would have felt. If, Arsenal do that, and I get it, you don't want your iconic player, one of the goats in your eyes in football, to go to your rival, to your main rival as well. But at the same time, if that's not something you need, you should let it go and you go get what you need to counteract that. That to me is what a big club does or a big team does. But again, I'm not going to sit here and say because maybe it's different. If you ask me about Henry, how would I feel? Or if you ask me about certain players, the truth is, like, it's hard, but you've got to do what's right for your club in that moment. Um, it's better to stick to the plan, but I would have been so angry and upset if Ronaldo. I hear it, I do, but like I said, like I don't think it's not the issue. Like it wasn't the issue you needed to address, and that's what I look at more than anything. Napoli could get far. Yeah, they look like a serious proposition right now, and it's going to be interesting to see what they do and how they do it. Um, I think we should have had a DM long before Ronaldo. That's that's true as well. You should have maybe got both, but the reality is, if they were screaming because they were that summer that they had no money, they didn't have anything to be able to spend on the likes of a Ronaldo. Then to me, the question is, why did you get him? If you had no money, but all of a sudden 25 million became available, you should have got a DM. There's plenty of midfielders who could have done that job for you that wouldn't have cost you the 90 million you spent on Casemiro and would have given you longevity and probably would have been players who wanted to play for United for more than just financial benefits. So so yeah, man, it's a very interesting conversation. We should have sold Pogba, in my opinion. Pogba wasn't even a problem, man. It became a problem because you didn't build around him. There's obviously he is a charismatic character that needs a certain way of addressing him, but I don't think he's a media problem. I don't think he's that kind of disciplinarian problem. He's more of just a flamboyant character, and you sometimes just have to feed into that personality more than you have to try and suppress it. So yeah, it's interesting, man. It's interesting, but yeah, I am gonna kind of start ending the show here. We've been going on for 30 minutes, and it has been a good return. I am gonna try and be more regular. It's difficult, but it is quite nice just to be able to get things off my chest without being on someone else's platform, and obviously having to respect other people needing to speak. So have a blessed weekend. Have a blessed evening. I shall see you guys probably after the Leeds game. Actually, I will try and do something late night on a Sunday, just to kind of talk about Arsenal, the Leeds game, and just what I think. So thank you very much for tuning in. Do subscribe, do like, and I will see you guys soon. Thank you. Bless.